this low-demand shelter is about. Those of you that have been here and seen what it is, it's not perfect. Guys that volunteered, can you testify? It's not perfect, okay? It is cots on a floor, okay? That's what it is. But it is a place where people can come and get on a cot, be off the ground if they choose to be. Some people like to be on the hard ground. Not be worried about getting a ticket, getting arrested, not be worried about getting robbed or mugged or whatever it is, and just simply get some rest. Can I tell you, in my own life, in just regular life, I have a life, and my wife will testify to this, that I'm going constantly. I have things I got to do, responsibilities I have. There are things I'm involved in. I got to always be thinking. I got to always be moving. And the rest that I get, I'm not a big sleeper. I don't get like 10 hours. I don't need 10 hours of sleep or anything. I need 6. I need 6 good hours of sleep. And I so cherish my rest at night. I get my sleep. My wife will tell you, man, 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, bam, I'm up and I'm going, and I feel refreshed and I'm ready to go face the world. Can I tell you, yesterday morning, I had sermon work. I needed to kind of go through what I was going to say. And we got up, and I intentionally wanted to get up before everybody else. And I sat up, and I pulled my Bible out and my notes. And it was like, and this is prime time for Pastor Dave. I mean, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, okay? This is where, you know, fire usually falls from heaven kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, and I couldn't even focus. I was so tired and just so on edge. And then, so I was just like, no, just put it away, I'll do it later. And then we went down to where they serve coffee and donuts. We were sitting on the wall, and we had like an hour. And I thought, it's okay, I'll do it. I'll just, you know, while we're sitting on the wall, I'll just kind of think about what I'm going to be saying. And I just couldn't get myself to focus. It was that, and I thought, how I could see how somebody on the street, having not had the rest that they need day after day after day, maybe their body shuts down at some point and they are forced to get the rest, I don't know. Okay, but I was telling one of the news guys just earlier, right before now the anointing's here and I'm going, but about 10 minutes ago, the only thing I wanted to do was go find a tree in the park and go sleep. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do. I'm exhausted, and it's been 3 days. 3 days, and I'm ready to just cash it in. Cash it in.
And I'm tired. You know, it's probably the number one thing right now on the morning of the second day is really this whole time's reiterated the need for a safe place to sleep for people. I've had a real struggle just getting rest, and rest is so important for me in my life, just to be able to focus and be able to be motivated. And yeah, it was really, really difficult last night and the night before to get any rest. And so it really reiterated the need for the low-demand shelter so guys can get rest, have a decent chance at some sleep. But then the other thing, you know, some of the places John took me yesterday were fairly overwhelming to see the conditions that people would be willing to live in. Was pretty overwhelming, and I left. I guess coming in, I would have thought that I'd be one of those guys that if I ended up homeless, I would seclude myself somewhere in a wash or a river or someplace, you know, on the outskirts of town. But after seeing what I saw, I think if that were to happen to me today, I'd probably come downtown and sleep on the street. So that's kind of a change in perspective as well.
I think I took my rest for granted up until now. And that's really the baseline of what this emergency shelter project is about. Here's the other thing, access to bathrooms. Now, we got lucky. Circle K, God bless Circle K, on Congress and I-10, because they leave their bathroom open and they welcome you to come in and use their bathroom. They also let you get water from their thing, ice cold water. What a precious thing that is in 110 degree heat. And so going in, my wife will tell you, I think I even shared it with John, my greatest fear was, what am I going to do if I got to go to the bathroom and there's no bathroom? What if nature calls at a very inopportune moment? Now, for those of you that aren't homeless, you know, the likelihood of that happening is probably pretty slim, but you could probably think of once or twice in your life where that's occurred. You know what I'm saying? I think we've all gone through that. Not going to explain that any farther. You know, that's once or twice, right? It's an everyday kind of thing, kind of a fear for someone on the street. Especially at night, after about 9 o'clock, there are no public restrooms. There's no place for people to go. Their choices are break the law. And that's the only choice.
Hey, PJ, you're asking in that middle of the night bush spot to go to the bathroom. Right up here where that light's shining, there's like a little rail in the ground. That's a spot that people just pee into that rail. And it's like a drain, so it's not like you're contaminating anything, but that's the bush spot. Okay.
Thank you.
Pastor Dave, you walk 2 blocks down to Circle K.
2 blocks.
That's your spot.
It's the next Circle K.
Yeah.
You can't get there from here.
Really. And so I'm not trying to make a political statement saying we need, this downtown or whatever. We talked about, could there be porta potties downtown, and could there be? I'm sure there's solutions to give people at least a place to go to the bathroom. But why I'm saying it is I want you to understand the struggle. I want you to understand the issue that no one would want that kind of problem. No one would want to be. It's not a nice existence. It isn't. And I think sometimes we think, these are just people that just want to, be downtown, no rules, blow off authority, that kind of stuff. But let me tell you, what I'm talking about right now is dignity lost at the highest level. It's dignity lost at the highest level. Now, before this, I think in my mind, and I talked to my wife about this, and if I had ever gotten in a situation where I would have to be homeless, for real, not like this. Being the outdoor guy, I would have thought in my mind, I'd go find a place in the desert and by the wash, someplace like that, and I'd go pitch a tent. I'd grab as much of my hunting gear as I could, and I'd go live there. We got to take a tour on Friday of the San Carlos River over here, and the washes and the tributaries and the tunnels, literally yards from I-10. And it was extremely overwhelming to see what I saw down there.
And pretty much, all along the riverbank or the river, you'll see these little areas. I want to think hundreds, maybe even thousands of people have set up camp here.
Now, would this be a fairly safe place? There'd be a lot of crime, a lot of people, beating other people up. Yeah, check this out.
Yeah, here's. Areas here. This is what we're trying to avoid. Like this is where people get raped. This is where people are found dead. This is where people die of dehydration or overdose on drugs. Like this, having to resort to this type of living. I think we're possibly running into an active camp right now. Just be cool and walk past it. Yeah.
Now, I've been to Skid Row. I don't know if there's anybody here that was on the Dream Center team with me when we went a long, long time ago, but I've been to Skid Row. Skid Row was couldn't explain Skid Row. It was the same kind of feeling down there. This was like Skid Row hidden into a wash. And I quickly came to the realization that I was there all by myself. There was nobody in the camps. But you knew that this would not be a very nice place to be once it gets dark. And as I was talking with Jon, he shared with me how, if there's rapes that occur, they occur here. Most of the overdoses that occur, this is where they occur. To see the human feces and just the stench down there and everything that was down there, it came very clear, very quickly, that's not where I would go. And I thought, you know what, the only place right where because we were down there because I had been telling John, I want to spend some time in the wash. I don't want to just be down there. I don't want to be just at Safe Park, and I just don't want to be just down downtown. I need to go where some of these other folks are. And so he took me down there, and I'm like, we ain't come back here, dude. We ain't come back here. The only place I would go right now, if I had to be homeless again, is I'd go downtown and sleep on the sidewalk. It's legal. There's police around, okay, meaning that it ain't that bad going to go on because there's cars driving by. There's somebody there that could help you if you needed it. There's still a lot of violence and stuff that goes. We just saw fights today at Coffee and Donuts as we were sitting there. Fights breaking out everywhere. But that part of it really had an impact. And I want John to come up and just kind of, he can share something that he wants to share as well if there's anything else. But just he took me and showed me where he lived for 4 months.
There's a part of the story that I never talked about. I was part of the Occupy movement. We lived in tents in the park. I'm a big activist, a big protester. Some may say even locally famous in that regard. But after the camps were cleared out in December of 2011, I was in a position myself where I had to go live in one of the rivers that Pastor Dave was talking about. I lived there in a tent for 4 months. So I really got to see, what it feels like to be homeless, what it looks like firsthand, and how hopeless it feels trying to get out of it. I mean, quite honestly, through the whole probably a year or so that I lived homeless in all different places, if it wasn't for Pastor Dave, opening up the Dream Center and opening up some projects with me, I might still be in that condition. And luckily now, I guess we could do a little applause. I have housing now through the VA program because I'm a veteran. But I thank him for that, and it's people like him, it's people like yourselves that just open up your heart, whether it's to one person or to a group of people, make it so that hopelessness goes away. A funny story about being out there that you left off, but are you gonna mention it? Okay. So the first night that we were all out there, and there's the 5 of us sleeping out on the sidewalk. Pastor Dave finally got to sleep. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Pastor Dave rolling around for about 3 or 4 hours. And then somebody just comes up to Pastor Dave and at 3 o'clock in the morning taps him on the shoulder. He's like, "Are you the pastor?" And he's like, yeah. And he's just like, he wore his contacts. He usually takes them out, but he wore his contacts through the night. He's real blurry looking at the guy. And he's like, "Hey, pastor, I'm a pastor too. Read my hat." And he's like, "Oh, I can't read your hat. I can't even see." He's like, "Well, so what are you doing out here?" He's like, "Well, I'm trying to open a shelter. I'm just trying to get this going." And he's like, "Oh, you mean for the uppity people at that shelter, huh?" And he's like, no, it's not like that. He's like, "Yeah, it's exactly like that." He walks away.
That guy, first of all, it was a lot more intense than that because I'd finally fallen asleep. Okay, that the situation that John had talked about. And for some reason, the first night it was like midnight, and I finally fell asleep, and I was in a deep sleep. And the dude didn't just like poke me; he grabbed me by the arm, and he was like, "Hey!" And I was like, "Whoa." And I turned around like, "Whoa," and then it went on, and he was sitting there. It was almost like he kind of had me, like by the shirt. John said he had his eye one eye open, like did he have to jump in there? What was the guy going to do? And I was freaked out, man. I was like, what was that? I didn't know. Was that like Jesus that just came by, or what was it? I don't know.
There's several instances like this where Pastor Dave's getting woken up. And to reiterate the fact that it's impossible to sleep out on the streets. The conditions that people are going through on these streets is beyond what you can believe. And definitely anybody else, and this might seem like a funny request, but anybody who wants to experience this, get in contact with me. Whether it's one night or whether you want to do like Pastor Dave did, I'm definitely be happy to show you.
When I started with somebody else, I started with somebody that ripped off a 15-year-old kid, and I got one more to go. And I ain't lying. And yes, I already told people, I'm not running.
Get away from me, dog.
I ain't running from anybody.
Chocolate on it.
Where you going,
Oh,
honey?
shit. Where are you going, honey? This guy deeply in love with me. He's just like on me. Look at you. Okay, you're going to stand up there. Right up there. You're going to tell the whole world, Elvia, you got to get my attention. And then you're going to say,
Hey Maggie, do you happen to know where the eyedropper is?
I know that if you put it on like the napkin, that should work too.
Oh, that's fine.
But I don't have an eyedropper. I can go get one.
Would you like a cookie?
Please.
I can see hot chocolate. Hi, sir. How are you?
No. Thank you. Can I get a toothbrush?
Yes, go
You got a blue one?
ahead. Sure. There you go.
Because seeing this experience or going down there and talking with people, it will change your life. It will definitely change your perspective, as it has with Pastor Dave. One of the, if not 180 degrees, at least 90 degrees. And the big thing in this whole repertoire of issues, and I don't know who pays attention to the news, but they pulled the camping ban off the agenda for the city council, so it makes it so it's not illegal. The safe park thing can exist, and there is a place for thousands of people, but there are thousands of people that live in the washes and rivers and all over the city in these little camps that have absolutely nowhere to sleep. That not only need the low demand shelter like this, but need hundreds of options to be able to accommodate them so they can get some sleep, so they can get something to eat, so they can get back to the next step.
One of the things John said, and I told him this needs to get out there, and I hope I'll explain it right. My mind is foggy, so if I don't, please excuse me. But I think there's a lot of people with this impression that just give everybody a house and pay their utilities and just keep giving them stuff. And that's not the solution. And John was telling me that's not the solution. We need to make it so that these people are motivated to get out of their situation. And that doesn't get talked about a lot. One of his things with camps is that he espouses camps before just giving people homes. Why? Because a camp is still bad enough to make people want to get out of it. Where if you just give them a house, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so the heart here isn't just give people stuff. It's try to get them to work for what they're getting. Try to get them to get their self-esteem back so that they can actually get a job and be able to get themselves out of the condition that they're in. I guess my opinion was, and forgive me, this is probably showing real, I don't know, maybe even prejudiced heart here. My thought was that all the people downtown, or most of them, were basically thugs and agitators. That was my thinking. And in 3 days, I learned that there really is a sweet community of people that live down there. There's a group of